guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian. I'm here today at the Rock Island Auction Company taking a look at some guns that are coming up for sale in their December 2014 premiere auction. We've looked at a couple of early self-defense type pistols in this series, and another one I want to do today is the French Gaulois. This is a rather rectangular looking palm squeeze type pistol, chambered for an 8mm very short cartridge. These were manufactured from about 1893 until 1910 or 1911. At that point, of course, there were proper semi-automatic pistols on the market that were not much bigger than this and offered a lot more effective self-protection, and this sort of thing really fell by the wayside. These were manufactured by a little company, actually a rather large company, in Etienne. That is, for those of you who follow French arms at all, Etienne is a major arms manufacturing location in France. There's later would be or is now a state-run arsenal. So this was manufactured by a company that was commonly known as Manufrance. It had a much longer official name, which, if I get this correctly, which I probably won't, Manufacture Français des Armes et Cycles de Saint-Étienne. They manufactured all sorts of mechanical goods. Pistols, other firearms, bicycles, sewing machines, typewriters, everything like that. They had more than 1,000 employees, and interestingly, they were actually France's first mail-order industrial manufacturing company, so kind of like a Sears Roebuck and company here in the United States. They'd make all sorts of products, and they'd send out a catalog, and you could mail-order anything they made. At any rate, what we're looking at today is this Gaulois pistol. By the way, that translates into Gallic, as in the region of France, or the ethnicity. So let's bring the camera in and take a closer look at some of the detail on this and mechanically how it works. So you'll notice, first off, there's some rather elaborate little engraving on this. The Gaulois was available in 3 different grades. If we look at the dust cover here, let me zoom in a little bit more. You can see that this is a number 2 grade. That's the medium engraving. Number 1 was totally plain, and a number 3 was very fancy. Looking at the rest of the markings, see this is caliber 8mm, and here's our name, Gaulois. We do have a front sight on the gun, which is kind of unusual for this style of pistol. We do also have a sliding dust cover. It sort of has a detent to hold it in the closed position, but I think that's pretty much worn off in the last 100 years. Lastly, we have a little stamp of the manufacturer here. Now, looking at the other side, we have a selector lever, and if you look closely, you can see there are 3 markings, S, F, and D. Those are safe, which does not allow the squeeze grip to move. F is fire, which does, and D is actually the disassembly mode. Now it's interesting, I was able to disassemble this in all 3 modes. I'm not entirely sure what the disassembly mode is supposed to do. But we'll go ahead and disassemble it here anyway. So I'll put it in disassembly mode, and then we have this little catch, push that up, and then this whole side plate slides right off the gun. Alright, so we have kind of a mess of springs in here. If we go through and look at what these are, this of course is the magazine spring. This was able to hold 4 rounds in the magazine and 1 round in the chamber. This would be carried, kind of interesting actually, it would be carried with a round in the bolt face, in the breech face. You can see there are 2 little rails on either side of the breech face there to hold the rims of the cartridge. 1 round would be there, and you can also see we have a hole right here indicating, so you can see through to see if there's a round in it, and then 4 other holes that correspond to the 4 other cartridges that would be stacked up in the magazine here. At any rate, you'd have 1 cartridge in the breech, and you'd have the dust cover closed. When you're ready to fire, you would simply push in on this. We have 2 springs. We have 2 springs here that provide the resistance to the striker, or the palm piece, and then up inside here, you can just sort of see it. There is a firing pin there's a firing pin and a striker riding inside the bolt. So when you squeeze the gun, what you're doing is squeezing a striker spring all the way back, and then when you get to the very end of travel, it releases, the striker goes forward, fires the cartridge. All right, so this one is a little bit worse the wear. What's supposed to happen is we have these two little tiny sheet metal ejectors, and they pivot up and down. You can see they've got the space, but they're kind of frozen up right now. What's supposed to happen is that as you compress the gun, they're down at the bottom, so the cartridge is sitting above them. When you fire, the firing pin drops, and then when you bring the grip back, they're supposed to hit a cam and be pushed up, which would then force the cartridge, the empty case, up out of this ejection port. The ejectors are then at the very top of the cylinder, or the top of the bolt face. That allows the next cartridge in the magazine to slide up into the extractor rims, the extractor claws, and be ready to feed into the barrel for the next firing. Now, the one other thing we can look at is this interesting kind of ovaloid cam in there. That's connected to the safety lever on the other side. So when I have this is disassembly mode, which draws this all the way down. This is fire mode. In fact, you can see this piece is what goes up into the breech or into the bolt and runs the striker. I have it up, it's now ready to fire, and then one more 90-degree rotation pushes it far enough that this block right here now physically blocks the bolt from going forward. It works a little better when the side plate's on. And that's what safes the gun. So these two springs provide the main power for the gun. There's a spring inside here for the striker. There's a spring here for the magazine. And this spring puts tension on the safety mechanism, or the selector lever, in conjunction with this flat spring in the back. So one pushes up, one pushes down.